So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Paul Wainwright, who's director and owner at QAD Architects. So, Paul, thank you for your time this afternoon. And firstly, if you'd like to introduce yourself, QAD, what you do, and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So, I'm Paul Wainwright, director at QAD Architects. We're based in Leeds. We are into our 20th year of business now, and we operate in most construction sectors. We're commercial architects. The primary sectors in which we operate are the residential, health, and commercial sectors. We do small amounts of education and other bits of work as well. But we pride ourselves on being a director-led business. So we're a small company, and that's by design, such that everything that we do, the three directors are all over, and that helps ensure the quality is consistently high in the work that we offer. So that's us in a nutshell.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm always fascinated by architects because I just thought the way you see things in that sort of three-dimensional space, and you can decide I'm very visual, but it's just it always amazes me. I've got a close friend that's an architect. I just love what he's able to do and what you guys are able to do as a profession. But if we sort of start this at the beginning, if you tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one, Paul.
Yeah, so you mean you want me to explain why I came into architecture or into the business of?
Yeah, well, a bit of both, I guess, really. Yes, just what's the sort of history?
Right, okay. So the background from the very beginning was, as a young lad, I had a very sort of clear vision about what I wanted to do from about primary school.
Wow.
Made that decision that I wanted to become an architect. Um, it was kind of spotted by teachers that that was there was a really real clear interest in art design,
Yep.
but in buildings. When other children would be sat drawing flowers and things, I'd be sat drawing the building across the road rather than the
Oh,
flowers
brilliant.
right in front of me.
Yeah.
So it was one of those sort of revelations, and I always remember a teacher saying, "Oh, you ought to look into architecture," and thinking I didn't properly know what it was at that stage. I'd be about 10 or whatever, and did a bit of research. I thought, oh, you know what, that's not such a bad idea. So that was a journey I undertook. And then it was quite a long journey. Unfortunately, it's 7 years minimum. I was determined to
Wow.
become qualified in the minimum period possible because I
Wow.
thought this thing is a long haul anyway.
Yep.
Why stretch it out?
Yep.
And so age 25, I qualified, and I should explain, I actually live in Sheffield, and um, various personal reasons, I ended up coming back to Sheffield and working in Sheffield for a national architectural practice.
Yep.
Remained there for quite a few years, and then for personal reasons, ended up moving to Leeds. I'm working there for another national architectural practice, and then worked for them for about 7 years. Working late one night, as architects often do, with a group of friends. There was just the three of us in the office, and we said, I'm talking early hours of the morning. Um, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And the conversation evolved into something along the lines of, we're doing this to buy our old chairman his next Aston Martin. Why don't we do it for ourselves? I hasten to add, I've still not got an Aston Martin, but there we go. And so the practice idea was spurned, and within 3 months, I think it was, QAD was born. And as I say, that was 20 years ago.
Wonderful. A wonderful story, and yes, it's Michael Gerber in his book The E-Myth talks about it as the entrepreneurial seizure. He says, you know, he jokes that we stop working. No, get this right, because he says you stop working for an idiot, and you start working for a lunatic, i.e. yourself.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Oh, fantastic. And so the three of you have built this up. I saw on your website you sort of got a large team now. So looking backwards to now, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome, Paul?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I I think there's probably about three that we've had over the past 20 years. And with each one, we've always we're very much look on the bright side
Yeah,
to people. And with each one, we've always said, oh, we got through that, can't get any worse. But those three were the financial crisis 2008 that hit us in about 2010,
yeah,
the Brexit downturn,
yeah,
and then the pandemic.
yes,
They were the biggest challenges, and I think it's interesting because you can. I think the attitude of the individuals is really key, and for us, it's always about, okay, this is a nightmare. That's the first issue. How do we get out of this? And then it's how can we use this to make ourselves better, stronger?
love it.
We can always do that. That's the way we look at things.
Love it, and yeah, interesting. I've operated business through those as well, and what I find interesting is, and when we're coaching clients, is when it is a national or industry wide challenge. The thing I always say to people to remember is everyone faces this challenge. So the businesses that solve it first are the ones that actually this will go from a negative to potentially a massive positive, and
Yeah,
it's having that, as you said already, the idea of turning a negative into a positive and seeing what that could look like is so important.
absolutely.
Because we run the risk of giving up. And yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you're familiar with the unfortunate stats of business failure, but and these cross industries are fairly common, which says that within the first 5 years of operation, 80% of businesses will fail, and of the following 5 years, the 20% that survive, 80% of those will fail. So just getting to 10 years puts you in the top 4% of businesses. So it's definitely something worth congratulations. Before you ask me what the 20-year mark stat is, I can't tell you that, but it will be another fraction. So
It's very sobering, and one of the things I reconcile myself with, Chris, is that I think if we'd have, I, I'm quite an analytical person, and I do research quite a lot and look at things quite deeply. But there are certain things that maybe I don't, and maybe that's on purpose. And I think that kind of statistic that you mentioned there is something that I would have never wanted to go into too
no,
deeply, because if certain things, if you look at too closely, you might never take that leap.
I completely agree. And it is just it's one of the reasons I do what I do, and a lot of my colleagues do what we do, because we want to reverse that statistic. It's like, fundamentally, if for the people that have the guts to actually set their own business up, deserve not just to survive, but get the rewards that they choose to have and dreamed of having when they set it up. And unfortunately, too many business owners don't. And it's a drive for many of us, is that trying to turn that around and making it something that, it's a big step to take. It's a big leap of faith in ourselves and other people to set a business up, and we deserve the rewards from doing so. But
Yeah.
not enough people do.
Mm.
So from whether it's from the challenges you've had or the successes you've had, or what would you say some of the biggest learnings you've had about business and growing a business and a successful business?
I'd suggest it's about people, and getting on with people and recognizing that, and finding those that you can trust and get on with,
Yep,
and playing to the strengths of teams and things like that. But it's a bit cliche, but I really do believe it. I mean,
yep,
in our industry, it certainly is a team game.
yep,
And we've over the years tended to work with a relatively small sphere of other consultants, and that's been a real positive in terms of the way in which we've driven things forward.
yep,
And being able to trust those that you're working with, and also to being able to get on with those people that you're working with is
Yeah.
exceptionally important, I think. You spend so long, in particularly architects, a huge proportion of our life is spent working,
Yeah.
doing the business that I think it's incredibly important that we should enjoy it. And a big part of that is enjoying the people that you're working with. And I think the other thing that I would definitely say, and it's definitely been proven many, many times over the years, is about treating people properly. And
Right.
sometimes you enter, or always you enter into endeavors trying to just do the right thing. And sometimes you don't necessarily get the reward that you feel that you deserve for doing that. But what we've learned over the years is that it might not be immediate, but you will get that reward. You will get the compensation for what you've actually done. And it might be, the number of times we've just helped somebody out who might have been relatively junior at the time. And then ultimately, a few years down the line, they've gone up the promotion ladder or whatever,
Yep.
and we've got a commission from them, or they've recommended us to other people. And you didn't help them out for those reasons. You just did it because it was the right thing to do. And
Brilliant.
you, I think what goes round comes round. I'm a real believer in that.
I couldn't agree more. I operate. We operate the same principle of we lead with helping first. Unfortunately, some of the businesses we work with and help are struggling at the moment or challenged. So we lead with help. The success, the financial rewards come at some other point. And if you focus on help, then what goes around comes around 100% in some
Absolutely.
way form. There's not an expectation of it, but it's so fascinating how adopting that approach is such a successful approach, in my opinion.
Yeah. Sometimes
Brilliant.
it's just simple things, isn't it? There's no rocket
Yes.
to it, really.
No. And your point about teams is that we from a coaching perspective, obviously we're business coaches, but we take a lot of our coaching principles from sport because coaching's been in sport a lot longer than it's been in business. And there's very few successful teams that operate where you've got a bunch of individuals that are just very good at what they do. Taking a bunch of highly talented people that don't get on, rarely is that successful over probably a less talented team that's close knit and wants to work and support and help each other succeed. And I think it's the examples are there all over sport and teams in general.
Definitely, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And sort of coming on to the coaching idea, I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, or just life in general. Who's been the biggest influences on you?
It's an interesting one, when they hear this, they'll fall about laughing. But I think my business partners right now, there's three directors I've mentioned. There's
Yep.
Ian and Nikki, and we've worked together. Well, Ian and I have worked together for 27 years, and Nikki slightly shorter, but not much shorter. And it's interesting in working together as a team. Sometimes you might not have all of the answers immediately or think that you have the answers, but to every issue, challenge, problem that you have, we just find we bat it around between ourselves, and it gets us to a position that is always everything's always solvable. Is
Brilliant.
definitely something I'd say that you learn over the years, that you get to a place sometimes and you think, oh, how am I going to sort this one out? This could be the one where it's really difficult, but then you kind of sleep on it, and then you think, you know what, let's have a conversation, and we bat things round, and we're very sort of diverse individuals, very very different, and from that comes almost the opposite of groupthink. It's interesting. Just listening in the press recently, and politicians talking about groupthink and how that's led us in certain directions that
Yep.
might not necessarily be positive. I
Yep.
say we're the opposite of that, where we challenge each other in a good way, in that we don't just say the same thing and think the same things, and
Yes.
sometimes come up challenges in very different directions,
Yep.
and in itself then that creates the solutions. And as such, I think I've learned so much from my business partners as individuals, because the way in which they approach things is entirely different to how I would, and it's which is almost counterintuitive. You think you
Yeah.
or I would have thought for somebody to be in business together, because originally I would have said, oh, surely you've all got to be really, really similar in terms of the way in which you would approach a particular problem. But I think our strength is that we're not. So
I, I work with lots of different teams that, from different levels, and it is the differences that really add the value. If everyone thinks the same, actually, the danger is we go in a direction that we haven't really thought of what the negative side of. So a level of healthy friction, I think, is healthy, respectful friction is really useful when we're driving forward.
yeah,
And we see that time and time again that's a valuable thing, that we are different and we acknowledge and value those differences. But I think what binds most great teams together is not, as you say, how we think, but the culture that we adopt. You talked earlier that I suspect, I'm going to guess that you all, and you've said it pretty much, that you've all got the same principles of doing the right thing and looking after people, and that's what brings us together. I think how we
yeah.
do that is a point of view that's great to have differences in. I believe.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Absolutely, couldn't agree more. The culture is of paramount importance. But 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have understood what you meant when if you'd have asked me what's the culture of your business.
Yeah,
But actually, it's something that is those three personalities and what we see as being essentially important, and the drivers behind what we do and why we're doing it and our objectives. That's created the culture, and it's never changed. Essentially, it's kept the same,
yes.
and it runs through the business, and everybody that works with us, works for us, works as part of our team, understands that.
It's bang on. It's interesting what I do. I meet lots of businesses that, because certain people have come from the corporate world, they see culture as being something that you do when you get to a certain size and it goes on the wall and everyone ignores it, and it's like it doesn't exist, and battling that, because for me a strong culture, this is who we are, this is our personality of the business, that is what should pervade everything we do. That helps us attract the right people, whether that's employees, because this is how we operate, but also clients and customers. If
Yeah,
you don't agree with our principles of culture, then probably we're not going to be the right fit and match.
yeah.
And so it helps people select and deselect themselves from being our partners. And if we don't have that, then we will get a random distribution of people with lots of different beliefs, and cultural standpoints, and that's often where we have problems, because we don't believe the same things to be important. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose the other thing that we found as well is that as we've gone through the different phases of the business, you start off and you're literally just at survival, aren't you? And then
yep,
it's about establishment, and
yep,
now at a sort of level of maturity whereby um, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day where, contrary to what a lot of other businesses are maybe about, we're not just about going for growth and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's not what we're about. We're really keen to stay the size that we are. And
right,
there's a reason for that. Going all the way back to what I said at the beginning, the director-led approach dictated that we either have lots of directors
yep,
or we stay relatively small.
cool,
So for us to be true to that point. And
yep,
um, it's it's kind of essential that if that's the way we're going to be, then we start then to look at, well, how can we improve? Because we're really keen about sort of the small gains and keeping that
yep,
going. And what we've started to do is to say, well, how do we get even better clients? How do we get and then we define what's a good client, and it might be about profitability, it might be about great buildings, it might be about repeat business, those sorts of things then start to drive the way that we kind of change the marketing perspective in which the direction in the business is going, and how we wanting to move on kick on at the next steps.
absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it's we in some of this we teach people, we teach about this idea of, we A, B, C, D clients. That's not a new thing, but the A's being, they're primarily a strong match of culture. So they get what we do, therefore they value what we do, therefore they'll pay full price because they value us to that level. They pay on time and they recommend us to other great people. They're highly profitable clients. B, being basic, they like us. We've got a fairly good match, but if the prices went up too much or if we weren't available at a certain point, they might go somewhere else. They'd be open. And interesting enough, most businesses do also have, especially the early business, C grade clients. They don't really, we call them can't deal with. We don't really like them and they don't really like us. So we have to try and work out how we managed to come together in the first place. And that's normally poor marketing because we weren't clear on our culture points. But what's really fascinating is that there's a Pareto rule that says 80% of profit comes from 20% of our clients. And now it can be different for any business, it could be 70-30, but majority profit, minority clients. And because of that, the closer we can get to recruiting primarily A grade clients, the ones that would be A grade, can have a massive influence on profit,
Absolutely.
multiples.
Yeah.
And the great thing is we start to work with more and more people that we like and like us. It's like it's a
Yeah.
virtuous circle in itself.
Yeah.
And yet too many people market too generally, and don't allow deselection of the right clients, and therefore end up, not as profitable and not as happy because you've got the difficult clients. It's a fascinating thing. I love talking about it because I just so much in business. If you do the stuff you really that you enjoy, often it is also the most profitable.
Yeah. It just keeps on being very, very simple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
These little threads that you work through that take you on that correct path. And sometimes, I suppose, as a business coach, you're helping keep people on that path. As somebody who established a business and runs a business without, I suppose, the formal training, because I'm one of those people, I suppose, as are most professionals, where you are trained to do a particular task, i.e., I'm trained as an architect,
Yes.
but not necessarily trained to about how to run a business. And so you go on this meandering journey that takes you off the path sometimes, and you have to come back. And hopefully, you do tend to keep in the right direction, but it's not necessarily going arrow straight like you would like to do.
No, and very few businesses do. And I'll be perfectly honest, even with a coach, there's still those meanders because sometimes you don't realise you're on one until you get back. I'd like to think it's a straighter course, and I do believe I've got evidence of that. But yeah, it's I do this because I like you, have my own business. We grew it. We're very successful. We got up to 100 people and to 12 million turnover. But because I didn't understand the principles of running a growing business, it nearly killed me. I was doing 100-hour weeks, and it really, because of the business was about me, I'd made that mistake. And so I do this now because I want to help people not make those mistakes and actively enjoy growth, whatever that looks like. I totally get, keeping it at a certain level, that's absolutely fine, but enjoy the process, not just the outcome, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It's crazy that we sort of meet people saying, well, it's not very good, but if we can give it another 5 or 10 years, hopefully we'll get something out of it. And it's like, just let's get it so you enjoy it, because guess what, you'll be more effective, efficient, and therefore profitable and happier. It's like
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. My was my belief.
yeah.
um yeah, no, it's fascinating. I just love it. So we obviously talking about coaching, but in running a great business, have you picked up any favorite quotes or sayings that you tend to use, Paul? I love to collect things
Um,
things that people tell me.
yeah, my children would cringe because this is what I say to them all the time, which is the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, that's it. I love that. Yeah, that's right. I think it was Liverpool Football Club sort of had that thing, wasn't it? Yeah, they were very successful. The harder they trained, the luckier they tended to be. Yeah, and it's true, isn't it? Because we learn, we learn more, we do more. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And what would you say you've learned about yourself, Paul, as you've been on your journey through, as you say, being a great architect through to being a great business owner?
Um, I think it's about tenacity and I think just sticking at it, it kind of connects to the working hard thing. I think just sometimes, the nature of a lot of the projects that we work on are that, they can be quite difficult to get over the line,
Yeah.
and there's lots of bits where you might not get the immediate reward, or it might not quite come off straight away, but just sticking on in there. And it's very much the same with most of our clients have the same attitude where they stick around, stick on in there, and it'll come around in the end. And you have that initial gut instinct that this is the correct way to go. And if you're true to yourself and you stick at it, then it generally proves itself right, is what I found. And I mean, I'd say I'm quite different to a lot of people that I kind of come across, which is I'd say that I'm a more thoughtful in the way. By that, I don't mean that other people aren't thoughtful. I mean that I've talked about being instinctive in the way that you might go on a particular journey, but I'm not the kind of person who will be able to sit in a room and brainstorm and come to immediate decisions and come to immediate. I'm the kind of person who will maybe sit in a meeting,
Yeah.
have a bit of a brainstorm or whatever, but then I'll go away, and a few days later it'll come to me. The epiphany will come to me, and do you know what? This is what I think we should be doing. And
Brilliant.
it's just the way my brain works differently, and I talked earlier about our business partners, and they're very different to that. But for
Yeah.
me personally, I need to go away and cogitate these things, and then eventually, you know what? Yeah, I see the light, and
Yeah.
it's a more sort of less instinctive and more considered approach,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I do. We call them reflectors. We reflect on things, and we need time to do that. But as long as as long as you're in a team that understands that, and therefore give time, even if they are more instinctive and go, look, it's obvious sort of thing. It isn't always obvious. And the great thing again is you get that different point of view. You've got
Yes.
you've got the reflective look. I've really walked around this, and I do think there's a couple of things we need to address that
Yeah.
on the face of it, instinctively, we probably wouldn't have seen. So it's such a valuable thing to have those different ways of looking at things. It's absolutely crucial, I believe.
It's interesting because I'm sure at times it could drive other people mad that you've got somebody who might sit there with you and then go away and come back with something completely different, a couple of days later. But as I say, it's just one of those things, isn't it? You have to embrace the differences.
And I think the great thing about you guys is the proof is in the pudding. You're 20 years in, so it's like you're clearly getting things right, and that probably is part of it.
Mm.
So looking forward, then, Paul, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Um, One of the buzz topics at the moment is artificial intelligence. And I think that is a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
It could be seen as being a challenge or a potential threat, but I see it as a huge opportunity. There's lots that we do that is still very mundane, very repetitive,
Yeah.
very, very, lots of research, that kind of thing. And that's where I see AI being a real positive for us. I mean, the construction industry in particular is renowned for its lack of quick reaction to change.
Right. Yes.
It's very slow in the way which it moves. It's very glacial almost. If we compare ourselves to, manufacturing, I've done a lot of read quite a bit over the years about automotive sort of manufacturing and things like that, who are far more adept at taking on new technologies, and in
Yeah.
terms of thinking purely in terms of the design side
Yeah.
and how
Okay.
they refine the process, and we are just so slow, and then on the sort of the product side, which for us is buildings,
Yeah.
the what we call the sort of the modern methods. They're not that modern, really, and they've not changed that much in over the years, and we're still ridiculously slow. The companies that are out there trying to have a much sort of more modern approach to the production of buildings, quite frankly, have really struggled. And there's been a significant number of failures just recently of companies trying to create different ways of producing buildings through system building, that kind of thing, modular construction.
Yeah, we
And a
yeah
lot of it is, I think, a failing of our industry kind of knocks on from others because the way in which our industry is funded is by institutions, etc., who in themselves are very archaic and slow.
yeah
And if they're not on board, then you're not going to get the funding, and therefore nothing happens, and that's why we get the failures. Which in itself is a big challenge to what's happening right now. Coming back to your question,
yeah that all makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we unfortunately we lost Ilky a little while ago. It's literally about a mile from where I am now. Ilky Homes,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
over,
well aware of them. Yeah,
as you say. Although I am aware just through various things that I think there's a lot of inefficiencies. It wasn't necessarily not just what they were trying to achieve, but maybe how they were doing it as well. Perhaps. Um, yeah, great. No, it really interesting about the AI point. I still learning massively about it, but I often say to people, it's a bit like having a group of really, really intelligent people that you ask to do something, and they go and do it quite quickly, and then they come back and you go, well, I like that. Could you just do it slightly different in this way? And they go, yes, absolutely, rather than I've just
yeah,
done it. And you just think, great, you've got this resource, and we can try it a bit more, do it slightly differently. And it's like, oh wow, that's fascinating. I don't know whether or not I'll end up being clever enough to start going. I've done that for you. I don't know, but it's funny enough. We've got a conference running at the moment, starting tomorrow in Liverpool, and we've got a guy called Charles Linney speaking, who's one of the dragons, and he's part part of his session is about embracing AI in industry in general, what it means and what we could do with it. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I think every industry and business needs to understand, as you rightly say, it can be a challenge, but it can also be an opportunity. And
absolutely. Yeah,
how we address it, how we look at it, is going to affect the outcomes that we have. So I don't think anyone can ignore it, because it is massive.
yeah.
Um, well, Paul, I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now.
Definitely try it, go for it. But um, the the key, there are no easy shortcuts.
Yeah,
You've got to do your prep, you've got to do your homework, you've got to do the research, and do it thoroughly. We keep on coming back to this, don't we? It's not difficult. I don't think it's about, if you're interested in a particular field or whatever, go and do that research. Go and is it feasible? Does it work? Can it work? How does it work? Who's successful at it? Who isn't?
yeah,
Why?
brilliant.
And all those sorts of questions. And you just need to keep on interrogating yourself and going through it. Friends and family, great people to sound things off. That's what I did,
Yeah,
and sometimes people can ask the most basic question and you think, right. And it really does send you off search scrabbling around, and you think, and you have to go and research that particular aspect of what's being asked of you, and it might actually help you change direction or whatever. But it's better to do that than to head off in a certain direction and get it all wrong. Coming back to your point about the number of business failures, etc.
yeah. And I guess it's a fundamental of coaching is asking great questions, and that I love, someone described what we do as being an unreasonable friend in business. Someone that cares, but we'll always ask a question about that, not because we think it's wrong, but just to check, have we walked all the way around it? Have we reflected on the key areas? Is there anything else we're missing? Yeah, it's interesting how often, and well, how often the simple question is the best one. It doesn't have to be complex. It's just what other options do we have, or what might go wrong if it was to go wrong, and let's discuss it. And if you started your business again, Paul, is there anything that you significant that you think you might do differently?
Controversial one, but I, the the whole notion of employees and employer is a challenging aspect of business, and I think because as a small company for us, it's easier to think about how I would do that differently. Because I think one thing that I would definitely do differently is I would start out from day one looking at everybody as a partner, and I wouldn't go out in terms of the way in which the business was set up, incorporated as a limited company, maybe, and I might set it up as a cooperative or something of along those
Right.
lines from day one. Because I think with that comes a different mentality for the team that
Yeah.
you're working with. The motivations are inevitably different. The level of trust is probably different. The level of burden, for want of a better description, is different because you're all in it, definitely all in it together. Over the years, at the top of the business, the three of us have made some enormous sacrifices for the
Yes.
sake of others that maybe work for us. That actually those that are employees of the business, had they been a bigger part of the business at that time, might have actually been, keen to share that
Yeah.
responsibility. But if I'm going back to the awful times, financial crisis and all of that,
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think that's the way in which I would maybe do things slightly differently. And it's interesting when you look at the John Lewis model and things like that, and uh, it's been championed over the years, hasn't it? And then it's kind of fell out of a bit of favor more recently,
Yes.
because they've had their own challenges. But I don't think that's necessarily to do with the way in which the business is incorporated. It's more to do with the challenges on the high street. So I still believe that it's a good way to go.
Yeah, interesting. No, that's really fascinating. I do find, or I have formed the beliefs that there is still a significant group of people that to get it right is like to be an employee. That they like the fact that you're not just dealing with the maybe the bigger decisions, but also shouldering the bulk of the responsibility and the fears and the concerns that can come with it. And it's just how you balance that and manage that, because ultimately any team needs leaders, I guess is what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
however you
Yeah.
manage that.
You're right. I think what it might do though is it might sort of refine. When you're looking for people to join the team, it might
Yes.
refine that process a bit further in terms of the thought process of the individuals that you're
Yeah,
getting to come and join you. And it comes back to the C word, the culture thing again, doesn't it? Really.
absolutely.
Um, does this person actually really buy into what we're
Yeah.
trying to do here?
I,
Because if they do, you're definitely not going to want to, put in your whole family's life at risk, or livelihood at risk if you
yeah.
don't agree with the culture. Whereas if you're just looking for a job, then you might well be thinking, well, this is a stopgap, and I'll move on
Yeah.
pretty
I
quickly.
completely. It all comes, just about every principle of business, and it comes back to culture for me. Whether it's, as I say, recruitment, marketing, operational, operating the business. That they're the rule. There are rules for life in effect in business. This is how we expect each other to ourselves to operate, each other to operate, and how we'll and if the closer they are to what we believe to be important, and the clearer they are, the more successful the organization in any level of growth that they choose to have, which is, it can be lots, can be little, it doesn't matter. But the stability of an organization, I think, is based on its culture. And just a final question, Paul. What would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
Um, don't get sidetracked. We talked about the meandering path.
Yes, yes,
You know, going back to the very beginning of this conversation, as I said, I had a clear vision about what I wanted to do, but I did get sidetracked over the word distractions, and those distractions came about because every now and then I kept on thinking there's an easier route, there's an easier option. Let's go and explore that, which I did. But I always came back to the path in the end and kept on the right direction. But then I think, well, how much energy did I waste looking at those alternatives? Or was it a waste? Should you keep on checking yourself? Maybe you should. I don't know, but I think it's about seizing the opportunity, isn't it? And
Yeah,
along the journey do come opportunities, and for some there are more opportunities than for others, maybe. And I think having come out the other end, it's more about looking at those other 18-year-olds and seeing that they get the opportunities. And I'm very conscious that we're in an industry that's still very male, very white, very middle class, very, all the
yeah,
things that sort of fight against diversity. And I'm
yeah,
really keen to try and help our profession as well as helping individuals
yeah.
by let's try and widen the diversity within
Great.
the industry. Let's try and attract a broader range of view, opinion. Will give us better design, I
Yep.
think, because that's society, and we're designing for
Yep.
society. It becomes obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, Paul, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you. You could go on, I could go on all day. And so firstly, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
And it'd be great to, swing by another 6 to 12 months and just maybe just see what else you've learned about the next stage of what you're doing. But for anyone for watching right now that might want to get in touch with you or QAD, what would be the easiest way to do that?
The website is probably the easiest one, and all the details are on there. q-ad.co.uk. So yeah, go on there and you'll find everything you need to know about QAD and myself and my partners.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. And as I say, it'd be great to catch up again in 6 to 12 months and see what's changed.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.